Hello, my name is Ramon. I am a senior at the University of Illinois, currently double majoring in engineering and business. Today I'll be interviewing Stephen Phillips. Stephen serves as the Executive Vice President as well as the Chief Banking Officer for Texas for the First Bank and Trust. Stephen is also a member of RMA. RMA stands for the Risk Management Association. The RMA is a non-for-profit, member-driven professional association serving the financial services industry. Its sole purpose is to advance the use of sound risk management principles in the financial service industry. Hello, Stephen.
Hey, Ramon. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. And yourself?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for taking some time today.
Of course. So my first question for you is, could you describe to me your typical workday and what it entails and how your first few years in the career was like?
Yeah, you bet. Probably the thing I would say, Ramon, is I'm not sure I have a typical workday, which actually makes it a lot of fun. So I spend most of my time not in the office or not in my office. I try to be inside our community banks. I meet with clients. I meet with candidates that we're interviewing for various roles. And so I try to spend most of my time in the markets as close to the customer, the clients, and our people as we possibly can. So, a typical day for me, I might have one to two interviews. I might have one to two client meetings, and then probably like most of us responding to email, phone calls, etc. But I don't like to be in an office. That's one of the reasons that I really chose this profession. I like to be around people, and so I try to do that as much as possible.
Awesome. I'm also hoping to go into a job that is kind of fast paced, as you described it. It seems like the idea of being around people all day helps the day go by faster and is more enjoyable.
Absolutely, man. Totally agree.
So my second question, what high school courses or college courses have you found to be the most applicable or the most important for your occupation?
Yeah, so I was actually a accounting major. So when I went to, so I took a lot of accounting courses in high school, and then obviously in college, that was the bulk of my course load was accounting and finance. And so I'm a little bit biased, but anybody wanting to get sort of in the financial industry, I think the more accounting classes you have, the easier it becomes. I thought I was going to do public accounting, and actually sort of my last year in a 5-year program where you get your BBA and your master's concurrently. I decided I want to give this banking thing a try. And so I will tell you, though, that having more accounting classes than a typical finance major certainly benefited me and really helped me to sort of more holistically understand financials and how that applies to what we do in the banking space.
Awesome. So kind of getting on that question, are there any classes that you wish you would have taken?
Oh, wow. That's yeah, well, going through 5 years of accounting, there's lots of other classes I wish I would have done. But, I think, I think a big part of this job, this industry, and really any industry is so much to do with people and building relationships. So I think any time that you can get exposure to how you can better relate, better empathize, better see the world through other people's lenses, through their eyes, I think those are hugely beneficial, certainly in the financial industry space, but I think that's just a good life philosophy. So if I was going to go back and do anything differently, I would really want to grab as many of those courses as I could.
Actually, that is one of the most common responses to that question that we usually get when I do interview people. It seems like it is very good for the communication skills, for one. It's very good to be able to communicate ideas effectively back and forth. And I feel like,
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's so much of this. I mean, it's you really see it from a customer or client perspective. Of course, being able to relate, being able to empathize, being able to understand what their challenges are, what their issues are. I think everybody really grabs onto that. I think there's some nuances and some subtlety though about how we interact internally. You know, how do you navigate? You know, times can be a complex industry that we're in. And by the way, some of that's self-imposed. I think we make things harder than it has to be. But until you can make it more simplistic, it takes a lot of folks around the organization to get things accomplished. And so the ability relate to relate with a diverse group of people, to be able to understand, not only understand, but also appreciate perspectives. You know, one of the things that one of my core tenets is I believe that almost without exception, that collectively we come up with better ideas and better solutions than any of us could do individually. And so part of that, though, is being able to not only understand and see a perspective, but to be able to accept it and hold it. And that's particularly challenging, I know for me, when it differs from mine. But being able to do that, I think we get far better solutions, both from a professional perspective, from a personal perspective as well.
Cool. So my next question, what part-time jobs, apprenticeships or internships, or even extracurricular activities help best prepare you for this occupation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I grew up in a pretty small town in Northeast Texas. And so I did some really interesting things for jobs in the summer. I had a lawn business, which was awesome. I really loved that. Although 105 degrees with 90% humidity, that's always challenging. But just learning how to actually manage a business, very small business, but there was some great learning in that. I actually did what most people think is a fairly strange thing. I worked at a funeral home for 3 summers, through high school and college. And while there's obviously some anytime you're in that industry, there's a host of things that you're dealing with. But here's what I would say that was the most learning for me is back to what we talked about earlier about understanding different perspectives, being around people, diverse group of people. Excuse me. That did more for me on a relational perspective than I think anything I've ever done. Because when you're dealing with folks that are at a point in their lives where they've lost someone, man, you really gain perspective that you otherwise wouldn't have. So I know that's a little bit crazy, but it's one of the best things I did from a people relationship perspective.
That's awesome. I wouldn't have guessed working at a funeral home would help in your field of profession, but I guess it really shows that you really got to take everything in your life with a sense of value. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, again, it's probably not the most popular track that people do it. I'm certainly not recommending it, but it just sort of circumstances worked out, and it was so much great learning for me.
Cool. So my next question for you is, what are the benefits of being a member of RMA?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So RMA, one of my very favorite organizations. So I really would boil it down to kind of 2 things. Number one is just education. So in our business, financial industry space, there's so much learning that needs to happen as you go throughout your career. And that spans, from credit, from underwriting, understanding financials, understanding risk management from an enterprise perspective, and then those 2 things obviously have tons of areas underneath them. So RMA, again, my opinion, hands down, just the highest quality of content, of learning content, and so that's a huge benefit. The other one, though, that I actually think is more beneficial is the networking and the people. So being able to have a group of peers, have conversations, talk through challenges, get best practices. It's just you really can't put a price on that. And so anytime an organization, RMA is a great example of that, can find ways to put people in a room, back to what we were talking about before, where I get a chance to hear different perspectives, to get different ideas. Again, I think we're going to come out better, the collective wisdom better than any of us could do individually, which is, really one of the core tenets of RMA, which attracted me in the very beginning about its purpose. And the theory is, if we're all better, we have a better industry. And so how do we create the conditions to allow us to share learning so that we can all get better? And for me, that is, hands down the number one thing that RMA has given me and given its members, and then the tangible, the education is right behind it.
Awesome. So that actually perfectly segues into my next question, which is what are the networking or educational opportunities offered by RMA, more specifically, I guess?
Sure. So, one of my favorite things that we do at RMA are these roundtables, and roundtables really geared toward more specific. So if you're on the credit side of the house, there's tons of things you can go to. You could do specific things around commercial real estate lending. You could do things around C&I lending. There's really sort of dedicated roundtables to getting at more specific items that we need to address and we need to talk about. So you've got a whole host of these roundtables that happen throughout the year, which are great avenues. The other thing that RMA, I think, does a really nice job on is creating what we call our chapter network. So it's one thing to have this national association and we come together and we go to an annual conference and we do things, and that's really great. But the activities that happen at the local level, so you get enough membership folks, and then you have these local chapters. So, for example, in Texas, we have a North Texas chapter, which I'm in the Dallas area, and so this North Texas chapter is made up of folks in this area come together, have events, more roundtables, more opportunity to network, more education, bring folks in, speakers, etc. So the chapter network, a huge deal, and then the roundtables that you can be a part of are really the two things for me that stand out.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Sounds like a great learning experience, actually. So kind of segueing away from RMA, what did you find most surprising about this career?
Oh, wow. Surprising about the career. I don't know. I may reframe the question a little bit. I don't know if I've been surprised by anything, but here's what I would say. And you know what, let me take that back. Here's the thing I'm most surprised about. I have a real passion for trying to create impact, positive change in the world. And the organization I'm with, that's the reason we exist. So we've got some fancy words that we put around it. We talk about inspire and empower others to spend life wisely. And all those have really specific meaning that we don't have time to get into here. But at its essence, it's all about trying to create positive change in the world. And when I started in banking, I don't know if I certainly didn't explicitly know that banking could necessarily change the world. Right? But here's what I've learned, and to your question, maybe been the most surprised of it. We absolutely can, and we do. And so I think that the financial services industry, banking in particular, serves a vital function in our communities. The idea that people have a safe place to put their money, the idea that folks have access to capital when they need it, whether they're buying a car or starting a business or whatever that loan need might be. I know we functioned hundreds and thousands of years ago without banks, but I'm really not sure how we did it. We just sort of traded stuff, and I guess that worked okay. But it's really hard to imagine how our society could function without the services that this industry provides. So that is a really, really critical thing. And what I want to, and what I hope, and I know we're doing this, add on to that is, yeah, and let's do it in a way that really creates positive change, that really has impact, that really helps people change their lives. And so that focus on that, this is not, for me and for my organization, profitability is important. You can't have the impact that we want to have in the world if you don't make money, and there's nothing wrong with making money, but the consciousness around what are you going to do with that profitability? How are you going to have a positive impact on the world and the communities that you're in? We pay a ton. I mean, that's why we exist. And so from a surprise standpoint, I think I would just answer your question in that I didn't realize the depth of impact we could actually have in this industry, but it's so cool to see the things that we're doing and be able to be a part of it.
Awesome. Yeah, I never looked at banking in that way, but when the way you worded it, it's eye-opening actually. Very profound way of looking at it. And kind of my last question, is there anything else that you would like to add that you think would help somebody considering this occupation?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't know if there's much to add. I mean, I feel like I really appreciate your questions and the depth of the questions, and hopefully that provided some insight. Maybe the other thing that, Ramon, that comes to mind, just some learning for me, is that I am more convinced every day that very rarely is the world full of absolutes. I very rarely think something's entirely this or entirely that. I think there are constant, constant shades of gray and movement on a spectrum. And I think the more than any of us can step into that, and be open to new ideas, be open to new thoughts, be open to, maybe it isn't entirely one way or the other. Maybe there are aspects of ideas that we can blend together. I think what I've noticed in myself is the more I can step into that place, the better the outcomes are.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a very, very productive interview. Thank you for your insight, and thank you for your information on RMA. If you have nothing else for me, I have nothing else for you.
Awesome. Hey, man, I really appreciate the time. Thanks for great questions, and best of luck to you. If there's anything that I can help you with, or any other questions that you have, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you, Steven.
Thanks, man. See you.